Nap time, Nancy's and Betty Bye Boys. Gently warm a glass of milk, your choice where. Tuck your ears under the brim of your nightcap. And Nick, I've always said we are such stuff as dreams are made of and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Man, if I had a quarter every time I heard that, I would talk Tull to me.
You would talk Tull to me. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Omen Thomas Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are the Feckless Moans.
And this, my little whirly-gigs, is Talk Tull to Me.
A rude awakening in the slumber sack of prog rock, in which nodding off Nick and obstructive sleep apnea Omen will cling desperately to half-remembered dream fragments of each and every truckle-bed track that rapid eye movement rock band Jethro Tull have ever caught, mixed, and blown through a long trumpet into the minds of drowsy children. It's a reference to the BFG by Roald Dahl.
Oh, never read that.
It's great. We will drop out of consciousness to the drumming of Doane Perry. We will grow giddy with Andrew Gidding's glorious nocturnal imaginings. We will enjoy the honey-heavy dew of slumber with Martin Barr, and we will see Jonathan Noyce prove that nature really must obey necessity. And if we can retain a glimpse of our somnolent suppositions, pen them down in our dream journals, and then have a quick lie down around 2 in the afternoon, we may recall from our subconsciouses an image of the somnambulant Scotsman, the catnap composer, the balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast. Ian, I arrived so quickly because I thought you said you were getting 40 twinks. Anderson.
You sure? Are you sure that was Ian Anderson at the end? Or?
Someone said it. I forgot.
Someone.
I may have been Ian.
I may have been looking in the mirror when I said it, but...
Nick, hello.
Omen Thomas Sade.
That triptych was about sleep. And we are waking up to a brand new Jethro Tull album to talk Tull about.
That's right. Technically, the final Tull album until the newest duo that we just had, Zealot Jean and Rock Flute. However, we are going to be talking Thick as a Brick 2 and Homo Eroticus after this because
we can't stop.
Because we can't stop, because we're being paid to. Because
we're not.
No.
That's not why.
Because the band members who helped produce those albums are part of Tull. We're part of Tull at the time. So we are basically considering them Tull. If you argue against it, please let us know and we'll stop.
What?
Please let us stop.
We have someone put us out of our misery. We have an inclusive definition of Tull. We're choosing to use the term Tull inclusively rather than exclusively.
Correct. Very nice.
Because Tull is an expansive concept.
At this point, 40 plus years on, yes.
Yeah. And as we know from purchasing the vinyl, an expensive concept.
Oh my goodness, an expensive one.
But well spent.
The most recent one that Ian put out with all of his solo stuff was like $300. It was a lot.
But it was like 10 vinyls.
It was a lot of vinyl though. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it came out to a decent number per vinyl, but it was still a lot of vinyl in one go.
It's an economy of scale. Really you'd be losing money not to buy that.
That's why I bought 3.
So you saved lots of money.
Yes.
Nick,
tell that to Raven.
What is the album that you just mentioned that we are talking about today?
We are talking about the 20th studio album released in 1999.
Ooh.
jtull.com.
I am so freaking excited to talk about this album. This is weirdly, for reasons I may discover, one of my favorite Tull albums.
I think I know why that is.
Are you going to enlighten me?
I think I'm hedging a guess. I could be completely wrong. But I think one of the factors is the fact that this is the first Tull album that came out when we were listening to Tull.
Yeah, that has got to play a big role in it.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think I also just really like the songs. I like the instrumentation, but we will get in to all of that with good time
Yes.
before we dive into the first track entitled Spiral.
I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah.
Pretty sure. We should mention that this album features Jonathan Noyce on the bass guitar.
Right. Not just touring for Roots to Branches anymore. He's come on full time and replaced David Pegg.
Yep. Andrew Giddings, we know and love him. On the piano, keyboards, Hammond organ, and accordion.
Beautiful bald bastard he is. Yeah.
Doane Perry is still with us. We have Martin Barr on electric guitar and acoustic guitar.
Our last album with one Martin Barr.
Yep.
I mean, the Christmas album technically, but this is...
Yep. And then we have Ian Anderson on vocals, flute, acoustic guitar, and bouzouki.
Bouzouki Joe.
Just interesting to note that this was released not directly on Chrysalis, but on a subgroup. Chrysalis created a new sublabel called Papillon, which of course means butterfly.
That's cute.
Apparently it was a strategic move so that they could compete with some of the other recording groups signing heritage acts. That is, acts that have already had long-term recording success and who already had a large fan base.
That's very strange.
I'm sure it has a lot to do with the music industry, business, and things that we understand less.
Yeah. Chrysalis is no longer. Wow. Founded by Chris Wright. Wright was named in Sunday Times Rich List 2009 of the 1,000 richest persons in the UK. My goodness.
Wow. So it seems like Chrysalis has mostly been bought out by Blue Raincoat Music, and then they were subsequently bought out by Reservoir Media Management.
Yeah. But we've also seen a lot of Tull's stuff through Warner at times. Presently, I think it's Warner for some of the stuff at least. It's hard to know, and it's hard to really to understand the intricacies of that kind of stuff because I think it's different per country at times, so.
It's also worth remembering that by this stage, Chrysalis was not just a singular label. They were a group of businesses that had their hand in all kinds of things. They'd really blown up.
Yeah, like Warner, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nowhere near as big, but yeah.
So all of that being said, shall we do our traditional reading from the tome that is Silent Singing?
Yes. Read, open your hymnals.
After what was the longest gap to date between albums, .com continued with a more progressive rock format. Nothing in the way of acoustic rock here, marking the reality of the new internet age and the establishment of the band website. The title fell into place, perhaps too obviously. The songs were mostly written at home between tours and immediately before the rehearsal/recording sessions. New bassist Jonathan Noyce joined us in the studio, having taken over the live work after Dave Pegg departed. Once again, drummer Doane Perry had come in from California, and to make it worth his laborious jet-lag-inducing journey, we had to spend long days and weeks in a concentrated block of work. Of course, in the early days of Tull, we were well used to that pressure schedule of recording. However, 30 years later, and as middle-aged gents, it would have been nicer to have enjoyed a more relaxed pace of work spread out over a slightly longer period.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if we will feel a sense of cohesion and that intensity of the rehearsing and recording process through this album.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the tour that we saw. This was our first tour, I think, right?
Yes, it would have been.
Yes. I think I saw them like a year or two before with my dad, but we saw them on this tour. I don't know what the tour was when I first saw them.
It must have been kind of the Roots extended tour.
Well, it's possible, or just like, hey, we need to keep making money.
Hey, we're touring.
Yeah,
Come see us.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like they did the 23 years between .com and Zealot Gene.
Well, but even with there were some concepts. I remember one of the ones that we saw later on was like the acoustic electric.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that?
Yeah,
that was so fun when they
Yep.
reworked a lot of material. There were re-releases of things that I think they.
Yeah.
But any excuse to get out there on the road.
Yeah.
With all of that said, shall we take a listen? Shall we spiral the conchlea of our ears into this song?
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should.
Conchlea.
Isn't it cochlea?
Cochlea.
But it is spiraled like a shell, so conch makes sense.
Waiter, I'd like an ice cold cochlea. Cochlea colia.
Just an ear in some ice water.
Here you are. Brakatatown, brakatatown. Nick McGill.
Oh, Omen. I was busy sleeping. I'm sorry.
A micro nap. What do you think of this as an opener for a new album?
I think it's a hell of an opener. For certain. What a kick in the face.
Yeah.
With gentle love, but a kick in the face all the same.
A gentle, loving kick in the face.
Yes, one of those. Yeah. No, I mean, it's great. It's got the energy. It's bringing it on. Honestly, I would expect the presence and energy behind this opener to come after an even longer span of not producing an album.
Yeah.
It feels like hey, we're back, baby.
It does feel like that. Even the choice of the voiced flute trill being that first sound that you hear, it's like, hey, in case you were wondering, yes, Ian Anderson is still playing the flute in this band. Here you go.
Right. That being said, this is, I was going to say this is the longest that in between albums, but there was, Catfish was 91 and Roots was 95. So that's a 4-year span. And now we've got 95 to 99 Roots to jtull.com. So another 4 years.
But there was also Nightcap in there that was released.
Yeah, but they didn't produce, that was all off the cutting room floor stuff, They didn't
True.
actively go in.
But it was a release, whereas I don't think there were any releases during that period between Roots and this.
Yeah, I don't think so. Oh no, that's not true. That's not true. They had this weird a Through the Years album, which is just a compilation. It's got Living in the Past, Wind Up, War Child, Dharma, Acres Wild, Budapest Whistler, et cetera, et cetera. They put out so many compilation albums.
Yeah. If we look back at the past couple albums, just in terms of opener songs, Catfish Rising, This Is Not Love. Same energy kind of comes in, smacks you on the snout.
Yep.
Roots to Branches, the titular track. Roots to Branches.
Yeah. Okay.
Very strong. I think that is Ian's preferred way of starting out an album. Something that really launches off. Even if you think back to Steel Monkey.
That's true. But maybe it's the trill. Maybe it's the voiced trill that feels like it's a step above even those. I don't know. But it does feel like just a tiny bit of effort was made, a bit more effort. I don't know.
I know what you're talking about. There's a feeling of energy. There's a feeling of urgency. I think that the work of Jonathan Noyce is driving some of it. It really does.
Yes.
Just switching out the bassist gives a really different sound to this. Noyce's playing is quite different than Dave Pegg's.
Yeah.
It has a modern feel to it rather than coming from that folk tradition.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
I wouldn't describe his playing as staccato, but I would say that he's very clean in saying, this is this note, and this is this note, and in between them, there's a little division so that the sauces don't cross-contaminate.
Right, yeah. It's very elementary. Not in its simplicity, but just
Each element is there individually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it crisp because it doesn't feel formal or stuffy.
Yeah.
It just feels like, I don't know, there's something very different about it. It's new, new sound for us.
Yeah.
Also, welcome back to the party, Mr. Martin Barr.
In case you forgot, he was still around. Holy hell.
Yeah.
He was on sabbatical for Roots to Branches, clearly, and he got bored. He got itchy. and busted in.
It's really interesting, the difference. And who knows the creative process?
Yeah.
Who knows all the things that determine this? But right out of the gate, we really have Martin very forward, very screamy in a delightful way.
Mm-hmm.
And actually doing some fun stuff. A lot of what we've heard in the past is Martin playing, setting up and being set up by Ian. Ian plays
Right.
Rakatatak. Martin goes Sakatatak.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that back and forth. Martin is actually doing that with Jonathan Noyce on this track so far.
Oh, okay.
There's a recurring part where Martin goes Rakataka-pa-pow, followed immediately by Noyce going ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum. And that's the phrase. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's cool to hear that together. And then sometimes Jonathan Noyce is following Ian's vocal line, supporting that. So just a really different use of the position in the band.
Yeah. Yeah, the bass it's very strong and very noticeable in this. There are times when I did lose it kind of in the wash of things.
Sure.
But it was not difficult to pick back out. Like, it's there.
And that wash that you mentioned is another remarkable feature of this song. Whereas in the past, we have the typical Tull lasagna, where first we have a layer of flute noodles and then a layer of synthesizer sauce. This is just all at you. This is a bolognese of just...
Yes, right. A carbonara.
Yes, exactly. Everything is in there together. And it feels almost overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
There are times listening to this sort of sound where I kind of have to step back from the wall of sound and be like, wait, let me focus on one instrument and try to figure out where does one end and one begin.
Yeah, it's a bit of a torrent, but once you sidestep it and can appreciate it outside of the flow, yeah, it's a good song. It's a really good, powerful song.
I definitely remember, and this is typically the case for us. We've described this whenever we listen to new Tull that is new to us. Mm-hmm. But I do remember listening to this album and kind of thinking, whoa, I've listened to it once. I need to put it away for several days.
Yeah.
And process what I heard and then try to listen to it again before I can even determine if I like it or not.
And this was long before we had all of the albums. You know, we probably had half of the discography by the time this came out.
Yeah.
At most. So we were still missing a lot of the puzzle pieces to get that grander scope of things.
And that's such a great way of describing listening to Tull. And I think why so many of the albums that are in this later period get maligned by so-called fans.
Oh, I just felt the whiz of the breeze as that shot was fired.
Did it get cold in here? But, trying to look at it in a 1 + 1 = 2
right
kind of scenario. Well, this isn't Aqualung, and so it's bad Tull.
Right.
Well, girl, did you listen to everything that came in between really carefully? No, probably you didn't.
Yeah. Even loosely, you can kind of see some connecting tissue along the way, along the journey. Even when it goes from something as drastic as that really Eastern feel of Roots into this, there are still traces. There's still that genetic material.
And it's almost as if we have what are those charts where they kind of pull out from the center? You probably have them in Dungeons and Dragons, where you have like the stats represented around, and then like intelligence makes this angle go out really high, and then strength is really low, and so it goes in at this point. You end up with a polygon.
Oh yeah. I've seen that on like personality tests and stuff. Yeah.
Right. If we were to make it that type of a chart for Jethro Tull, 1 point would be heavy rock, 1 point would be folk, 1 point would be jazz, 1 point would be blues, 1 point would be whatever else.
Disco,
punk. And music is always acting in relation to all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes what we've seen across the years is, they're swinging back to more of a folk direction. Oh, they're swinging to more of a heavy rock direction. Oh, they're swinging to, and this feels very much like swinging back toward the heavy rock / prog, kind of letting go more or less of some of that folk sounds, even the title .com.
Yeah. It almost feels like You wanted the heavy rock of Aqualung? Well, here's the heavy rock of Aqualung.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like Aqualung, but it's the heavier side of Tull.
It is. And it's quite, I mean, we could do a whole episode on what is prog and what is not prog. In fact, maybe we should.
It'll be a whole series. In fact, let's let Ian do it. Like Sort of Young Person's Guide to Prog Rock. Go listen to that.
That's right. He'll tell you. That's not our wheelhouse. But I do think that whether or not we could say it's prog and whether the prog has a big P or a little p,
How much apple juice did you drink?
maybe you should say a proctologist. A progtologist. How have we not made that joke?
Oh my God. Why have we not been calling ourselves progtologists?
Oh, well. Oof.
Missed opportunity.
I still like to keep a hand in.
Yeah.
It is very compositional, this song, even though on one level it's very riffy. We have that repeated riff. On the other hand, we have some really great compositorial moments. At 139, we have this feeling of kind of going into this in-between land where things get a little hazy.
That's right where I put down very trusty solid bass at 140.
Right, so we kind of pull back a little bit. We hear the drums. Ian says, spiral. We hear the bass, but it's a little bit sparser. It just kind of gives you a moment of like, oh, what is all this?
Yeah, it's a bit almost psychedelic, you know? It's a bit like, woo.
The effect is psychedelic without the sound being psychedelic.
Yeah.
And then we hit this bright rupture moment at about 153 where Martin rips the guitar in half like a phone book and reassembles it in the dark. It's amazing. That leads into some glorious Hammond organ riffage.
Very organy, very organic.
And I think it's an actual organ, not just synth on an organ setting. It has that warm feel to it.
That's true. That's a good point, yeah. I believe probably for the last 30 years of Tull, there have been multiple keyboards on the stage. So I would not be surprised if he had a keyboard and a mellotron and an organ.
And he's credited as piano, keyboards, Hammond organ, accordion. So it's, it's
perfect, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
From there, we go into this really interesting section at 225, where we have flute harmonics and guitar feedback as the main sounds. It's that part where Ian is going,
I put it down as anemic flute.
yeah. Of course it's intentional because it's Ian.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he forgot to turn off the flute mic and the flute is just like depressurizing.
Yeah, like you would expect to hear from an accordion, but it's the flute instead.
Right.
Yeah.
He hooked up the flute to an air mattress and the air mattress is almost completely deflated.
It's barely got anything left in it. It's like the flute bird fell out of the sky and with its last little breath,
It said,
it
"Tweet."
tweets the rest of this, the rest of the song.
But I do think that technically he's using harmonics, which is very weird to do on a flute. But he's not playing a direct note. He is twisting the airstream so it's only activating a part of the blowhole.
It sounds a little sour. It's strange. Yeah.
It's so weird. And then Martin just is like letting the guitar feed back on itself almost as his contribution to that section.
Yeah.
It's very bold. To me, that's very proggy. It's like, hey, we're going to make sounds with our instruments now. Are they notes? Who cares?
You tell me.
Yeah.
The drums are pretty prominent in there too. I didn't even cotton the guitar. It was the drums and the flute for me.
And that's a bit of a rare sound as well in Tull. We sometimes in the early days have, here is a drum solo, but we don't just have like, here's a couple seconds for you to contemplate how great our drummer is.
Yeah. Right. It was in Doan's contract. Yeah.
Right. And that juxtaposition between full on instrumentation, everything very, very rich to, we're going to pull back for a second. That I think is what causes me some of those psychedelic feelings that you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, we're used to that up and down roller coaster of bright, brash, loud, and then we pull back and have kind of this peaceful, soft maybe emotional moment, but that's not this. This is pulled back quiet, but also kind of weird.
Yeah.
So you don't get that moment of respite. It's like, oh, what's going on now, though? Really? Ugh.
It'll typically pull back to, in previous work, it'll pull back to the keys or pull back to the acoustic guitar or just the flute. But yeah, it is interesting that we see the drum. It feels like a big structure out in the distance, you know, when you're driving through the Midwest and you see like an abandoned grain mill, grain tower, and you're like, oh, this is desolate.
Yeah, right. What stories could that ruin tell? Twee, twee, twee.
That's the wind blowing through the grain.
Through the... Yes.
If you want more information on abandoned buildings, check out All American Ruins
Oh, been a while.
by Nick's good friend Blake Feely.
File.
Greg Feely.
Chris Thiele?
Feel your way through. File it away. Welcome to the half. Nick has slipped into an unconscious state, and I've learned over time it's best just to leave him there. If you startle him, he could fight. His fight or flight response is triggered. So yeah, we're just gonna let him there. I have a little write-up of jtull.com by none other than Brian Raby, who wrote A Passion Play: The Story of Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull. If I could only find the book somewhere. This is over. Master Roman! I brought it to you. Here it is. Mary, why are some of the pages missing? We ran out of personal paper in the outhouse. Mary, shame on you. You cannot use the Tull collection for the outhouse. I wasn't using it to wipe me bum. Oh, well, that's all right. What were you using it for in the outhouse? Rolling big spliffs. Oh, Mary, we've talked about your drug use. As long as you aren't hurting anyone, it's fine. But please don't use my Jethro Tull books. A spliff a day keeps the doctor away. I don't think that's how it works. All right. On the chapter, mentioning jtull.com, Brian Raby says, as the new millennium drew near, Tull preempted it with 1999's jtull.com, which not only ushered in the internet age, but was also their URL. However, they seem to have the stronger www.jethrotull.com as their website now. It had a number of great songs. The Ian Anderson solo material was not evident, and orchestral musings had not yet arrived. .com was a solid album that was a celebration and could have been a continuation of new great Tull offerings. It wasn't, but was a swan song to the Tull recording careers of Andy Giddings and Jonathan Noyce, which, for the later, had only just begun. They did stay with the touring band for a few more years, though. To date, it is the last real Tull rock album. Of course, this is written some time ago. With the material that followed being largely Ian Anderson's solo work, it was a good marketing ploy on this album to include the Secret Language of Birds bonus track. And it was introduced by Ian on some recordings. This is, of course, something that we remember fondly of Ian saying, hello, this is Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. Tweet, 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 tweet. Call me in the morning.
Hello, this is Ian Anderson. Congratulations, you have happened upon a bonus track on this edition of the new Tull record. It's a preview of the title track from my solo album, The Secret Language of Birds. Tweet, 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 tweet. See you in the morning.
So, interesting to read it from this historical perspective, saying it was kind of the end of the Tull era. We know that that is now not the case, but it is a fascinating transition point to a new era of Tull. I'm going to gently wave some cooked bacon under Nick's nose here instead of smelling salts. Let's see what that does. Piggy, want a breakfast? Here comes
Hey, Mary, where's the bog roll?
Hey, it's in the library! Nick, welcome to the second portion of our podcast.
Here we are. I am stuffed full of bacon. Let's do this.
So, Spiral, Nick.
Spiral.
Spiral.
So you did the theme of sleep.
I did do the theme of sleep, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me why, please.
I think this song is about sleep.
There you have it, folks. Problem solved.
But what type of sleep is it about?
It seems like wacky dreams.
Let's jump in and see what we can discover.
Okay.
I know an album is going to rock when the first word is kilometers.
Guaranteed bop.
Yeah. I can hear everyone I went to high school with screaming in rage, and I love it. Gives me a strong, positive feeling. And I love the scansion on it too. Kilometers from nowhere.
Yeah. Scansion in this is bonkers, this song.
It's very unique.
Yeah.
Kilometers from nowhere on a scented avenue lined with poppy girls. Didn't stop to say hello.
Kilometers from nowhere on a scented avenue. Line with poppy girls, didn't stop to say hello.
We have that repetition. Didn't stop to say hello.
Mm-hmm.
We have other instances of that. So far, this could be Ian's Voyages in the World.
Right. Yeah. It could fit in very well with the previous album of this. I was in this exotic land and I had this experience. I saw these people.
And I think there are a lot of themes that bleed over from Roots to Branches into .com.
Yes.
That worldly travelness and perspective.
Agreed. Yeah.
It continues, curious vendors waving bric-a-brac looked me over. Thought it best that I should go.
Curious vendors, waving bric-a-brac, loves me over, thought it best that I should go.
Again, this could be, this almost is Dangerous Veils. Oh, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
Crazy market town, interesting stuff.
Yeah. Passing through a bazaar and I'm clearly just a tourist.
But then we have the repeated line of the song, one of the repeated lines of the song, don't wake me, I'm falling, slow spiral into morning.
But don't wake me, I'm falling, slow spiral into morning.
That's what makes me think all of what he's describing are his pleasant dreams, and he really doesn't want to wake up.
Okay. Okay.
How bought into this concept are you so far, Nick?
I mean, it's as good as any, to be honest. Like, I was having a bit of a challenge here. I've noticed that everything is past tense,
Okay, interesting.
which is interesting. Yeah. A little bit of it made me feel like this is the life that I lived and I didn't want to wake up, but now I have woken up.
So could it be, as just a different interpretation, could it be instead of waking up as a metaphor for I'm on vacation and I really don't want to go back to my day job?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm slowly spiraling into the morning of now having to get back to my daily life.
Yeah, and the closer you get to the end of that holiday, the further the spiral down goes because that reality is you're falling closer to that reality.
It could also be, rather than a sleep dream, a daydream.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sort of dozing off on the tour bus or on the train. I remember one time I was on a boat tour in Ecuador and I woke up, the guide was napping, or he'd sort of dozed off, and I really wanted to ask him a question about some tree or some bird. I kind of shook his knee and he started up and he looked at me and he was like, I was dreaming of my ex-girlfriend. And I was like, it was clearly like, he was clearly like, you chose a poor moment to wake me up.
This was in high school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where you ate guinea pig?
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. We continue, and this is where I think the imagery just feels like dream imagery. I waited tables, I was tipped in rubles.
I waited tables, I was tipped in rubles.
That kind of feels to me like that moment when you're dreaming and you're like, all this seems plausible, and then there's one detail that you're like, why is that?
I will buy this with Monopoly money, of course, because that's what we do.
Because that's how it works in this dream.
Yeah.
Wine to water was the best that I could do.
Wine no water was the best that I could do.
First of two Christ references here. Mm-hmm. But also that kind of seems like dream logic of like, oh yeah, let me turn your water into wine. And they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'll tip you.
In this instance, it's turn your wine to water.
Oh,
It's a little twist, yeah.
wine to water was the best that I could do. He's generic brand Jesus.
Right, yeah. He's off-brand, not that impressive, but you got to have a Jesus, so you get the one you can afford.
Behold, I can turn milk into sour milk
Into yogurt.
if you're patient. Wild office parties split the silence.
While office parties split the silence.
This is the first in a long string of kind of corporate business world references that we hear throughout this album, which I find fascinating. And then loaves and fishes at an empty table laid for two.
Loaves and fishes at an empty table laid for two.
See, that verse to me makes me feel like the Jesus reference that this character, this narrator singer,
Who's singing?
was a waiter at one point.
Okay.
And he's comparing his humdrum, oh, I'm just a waiter, to the life of Jesus, saying, oh, well, even Jesus turned water to wine and gave people bread and fishes. He's trying to fantasize, trying to make that give that more meaning.
Interesting.
And then don't wake me from that
From
fantasy.
my fantasy. Oh, yeah, why not? Okay, sure. And it could be a literal dream where he was dreaming about being a waiter. But
Also, yeah.
I think that interpretation works for this, at least plausibly.
How that really works on the first verse, you don't really know.
But it could be a serial.
Yeah.
It could be, hey, here's one moment of Don't Wake Me Up. Here's another moment of Don't Wake Me Up. Here's a third moment.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Then we get to our proto-chorus. Who's out there? Can't hear you. Ears covered. Early warning. Alarm bells ringing. Time to make my peace with the dreary day.
Don't wake me. I'm falling. Slow spiral into morning. Who's out there? Can't hear you. Ears covered. Early warning. Alarm bells ringing. Time to make my peace with the dreary day.
On the one hand, that feels very literal.
Yes.
It's that, 5 more minutes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, well, I have to get up because I have to go to my waiter job. All right, let's do this.
My spouse manages to stretch this moment into a full hour.
That's impressive.
It's something.
It's something. Yeah, for me, once the alarm's up, I gotta get up. I can't fall back to sleep or anything.
Yeah. I can go back to sleep, but if I do, I wake up so groggy.
Yeah. So yes, this could be the literal physical thing, but it also could be don't shit on my sunshine, don't ruin my fantasy, don't shock me into the existence that I'm actually in.
That's something interesting because the spiral is a gradual way of traveling. A spiral isn't a straight line. It's not a straight line between being awake and being asleep.
Right.
The spiral makes me think I've slowly built this fantasy up or this dream up out of effort.
Yeah.
And so let me slowly spiral back down into reality rather than, like you said, this abrupt kind of drop into consciousness.
Yeah. And then that next verse kind of touches on that.
And to me, takes us back to more the abstract, more the dream world.
Right, but I also think this is the part that's the closest to reality. If we're looking at tiers of these verses, this is the closest one to that cusp of waking up.
Down the spiral, spinning madly, gathering momentum on a Disney-esque adventure ride. I fly in colors from richer palettes, famous artists running scared as worlds collide.
Down the spiral, spinning madly, gathering momentum on a Disney-esque adventure ride. I fly in colors from richer palettes, famous artists running scared as worlds collide.
You feel like that's more the reality?
I think that's what the worlds colliding are.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Yeah. And then down that spiral also, that's that descent down into waking up.
Interesting. The Disney-esque adventure ride and the colors from Richard palettes, the famous artists, that speaks to me more of the dream world, that like the dream world is more colorful, filled with the work of artists, and then the real world is the dreary day.
Yes. Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. But I feel like it's as he's going down that spiral, he's seeing, oh, this is a dream about a field over here. Oh, and this is a dream about a bright yellow.
Going down past them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
It gives me a little bit of a reminder of, do you ever see the movie What Dreams May Come?
Sure.
Robin Williams
Mr.
movie.
Robin Williams, yeah.
Heartbreaking
Yes.
movie.
Yep.
But the dream world or the other world, no spoilers, is very artsy, very, well, some sections are very like watercolor painty and it just the different representations. That's kind of what I feel here.
Quite amazing visual effects in that film because
Yes.
it's like a set, but the set has been painted and there are even moments where he like touches it and the paint comes away on his fingers, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
How do you compare this song to Waking Edge? Off of Crest of a Knave.
Crest. Yeah, I'm looking at the lyrics now.
It's a long intro, like a whole minute. A minute and a half. As I wake up
in a room somewhere.
his Tom Waits era. Thin horizon between me and her.
Waking Edge is obviously more romantic. The dream
It's focused.
is focused and it is his lady. It's his lady love. He is off on tour, he's doing work, whatever. She is not there, but he dreams of her on this cusp of waking and sleep. She's there in one form or another.
It is an erotic dream in terms of, by the meaning of
Eros.
eros, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas Spiral is I ate some bad Vindaloo the night before and and I thought I was ready for those peppers, but woof, boy, they kept me awake.
My quinine tablets have given me awful nightmares because we're touring in India.
Just drink tonic.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is more about the relationship between asleep and awake rather than the relationship between a person who isn't there and yourself.
Yeah. The person is the dream in Waking Edge, whereas this is just anything goes.
Do we have a lot of other Tull songs about sleep or about dreams? Not too many, I think.
I wouldn't have even remembered Waking Edge, to be honest, but I don't think so.
We have kind of dream ruptures in songs. I'm thinking about No Step, where there's that interstitial part where he's like, oh, what if I was a goose? Sleeping with the dog.
Yes, but what if I was a goose?
But what if I was a goose?
Passion Play is very dream scenario feeling.
Yes. Sort of the afterlife as a dream.
Yeah. Like a Christmas Carol almost dream scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like some people are very, very connected to dreams as inspiration. I'm very connected to dreams as inspiration. I freaking love sleep and love dreams. I'm asleep right now.
I love being inspired.
I do. I really think that dreams are fascinating. They're kind of like the one thing that's left in my mind that you can't buy or sell.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Here's hoping. The patent hasn't gone through yet, so we won't say much.
I created a whole show that is based on training actors to record their dreams and then adapting the material that's on stage from that dream content. It's a super fun way of working.
Somnium?
Somnium, which comes from the Latin word for
Sleep.
in, for dream, I think.
Yeah.
But this is not doesn't seem like something that Ian has talked a lot about. It's not like he talks about like creating songs from his dreams or anything.
Yeah.
Just an interesting kind of touch point for us.
Yeah. Is it remarkable that we should consider it going forward in terms of the rest of the content of this album? Maybe.
Maybe it is more thematic, as you've been saying, to this idea of real life, quote unquote, versus fantasy life. Mm-hmm. Whether that fantasy is a proper dream. Oh, Pussy Willow.
Yeah, honestly, that's the one that came to mind. But that's daydreaming, I guess, right? Like that works.
That's yeah, and in a similar way, the kind of the confrontation between the fantasy world and the real world.
Yeah. Good point.
But maybe as we explore this world, this digital world that Tull is existing in with this album, maybe there is an uber theme of the digital age being, in a way, a fantasy world. Don't wake me from my game streaming session, Mom. I can't just pause it. It's ranked. You know, maybe there is that sense. I mean, maybe this is a predictor. In 1999, oh my God, the internet was still an idea that filled us with hope. There was still kind of this positive association. The internet wasn't the putrid, festering hellhole that it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I was thinking about that the other day. Like something about in college, if we had a question about something that we didn't have immediate access to, we couldn't just Google it.
No.
The answer was not there.
No, you had to really, really look on the internet for it.
Yeah, right. You had to fight for it.
I think that whether or not it relates to this song, I do think that there's an element to this album that we should be looking out for, which is what is society's relationship with the very new, about to be world-changing .com.
Right. We know that Ian is an early adopter.
Oh, yeah.
He always has been.
He actually started using the internet in 1979. Just didn't tell anyone.
He says that he was using the internet before it was cool.
Did he say that?
Yeah. No. So this album, jtull.com, is like, hey, we're on the internet now, right?
Yes.
It's Jethro Tull's cotillion of the internet.
They're digital cotillion, yeah. Well, and it was literally to say, we have a website.
Yeah.
Hey, people are having websites now. We have a website. You should know about that.
Now I'm interested to hit the Wayback Machine and see what jtull.com looked like back in 1999.
Absolutely, we should do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Anything else about the lyrics, Nick? We have spiral, we have dreams, we have fantasy, we have not wanting to wake up, we have the dreary day. Any way to wrap that up for us?
Just that his voice is nice in this.
Oh, yeah, we didn't really talk about that.
He's singing very high for 1999. He's singing very high and comfortably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that's it.
Spiral. Spiral.
I listened to the first half of this album on my run this morning, and man, this album has a special place in my heart. There's part of this album that is a little cringe for me. The fact that it's called .com, the fact that
I know.
it's about the internet. I mean, it feels in retrospect like, oh God, if we had only known. But I also love cringe in a way. Like there's something so earnest about it.
It's making something so specifically set in time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a new Carbon Leaf album just dropped, and I was talking to Ray about it. It's very good. But there are a couple of songs where they talk about something like very specific, like a specific year or a specific location. And I don't like songs like that.
Because it dates it.
And I like to put my own fantasy on it. I like to put my own feel into it.
Yes.
Instead, I can only feel about Germany. I can only feel about this, you know, like whatever that so specific subject is.
That's so fascinating. Yeah. Well, interesting to see where we have leeway to fantasize and dream on this album and where we are bound by the strictures of reality in 1999. I'm really excited. Just for anyone out there, if you're not super familiar with this album, give it a really good listen. And we'll talk Tull about it.
So what is next week then?
Next week, Nick, is the title track.
That it is.
.com. A fascinating track, lots to talk about. Until next week, I am the Disney-esque adventure ride, Omen Thomas Sade.
Who's out there? I can't hear you. Oh, yeah, it's Nick McGill.
Is Nick McGill out there?
He is.
Oh, okay. We are kilometers from nowhere, the Feckless Momes.
And this is just a couple of curious vendors waving bric-a-brac. Talk tell to me.
Hey, you want some bric-a-brac?
Hey, I've got the brick. He's got the brack.
Hey, together we're brick and brack. Don't call us brack and brick. We'll slap ya.
Talk tell to me is a proud member of Feckless Bones Audio Network.